Alrighty, the second fight of UFC 268, part of the early prelims, we had Melsik the Gun Baghdasaryan against Bruno, what was it, the Tiger? Bruno the Tiger Souza. Originally, this fight was going to be Melsik against TJ Laramie. TJ Laramie, if I'm not mistaken, was also on Contender Series before, but he lost his UFC debut. Was going to fight Melsik, which I was honestly pretty fascinated to see how that matchup was going to go. TJ got hurt or something happened, so Souza stepped in kind of last minute. I think he had about a week's notice leading up to this fight. And Souza, very brief background on him, entering this fight, had won 10 in a row. He lost his first professional fight, won the next 10, had a karate, taekwondo background, Brazilian dude, had been in training out of LA the last 2 years, I believe they were saying. He was an LFA champion, and then he stepped in again with about a week's notice to fight Melsik. Melsik making his second UFC fight. He won on Contender Series last year. He won earlier this year against Colin Anglin, who's fighting next week, if I'm not mistaken, with a beautiful head kick. Jeez, man, what an absolutely beautiful head kick. And honestly, I don't know why Bruno even showed up to fight if he was going to do what he did yesterday, because I think what Bruno showed is he's a very, very good he's a very good rim job provider of the octagon, because that's about all he did. And which is kind of
smart.
frustrating.
No, he was smart, dude, because if he didn't do that, he was going to get destroyed way sooner than, the end of round 3. And I actually give him credit for realizing that Melsik is not cutting him off. And that's definitely a ding on Melsik to not notice that, hey, dude, he's leading you around by the nose. You need to not follow, but you need to step in front of him to prevent that, merry-go-round that he's taking you around on. So to Souza's credit, dude, that was very intelligent. I thought that showed some good fight IQ. Because I think
he didn't do anything outside. Like, I get it.
I understand that, but my point is, if he didn't do that, this fight would have ended much sooner than it did. So he milked it, and it paid off for him. Surviving.
Which round did they give him? They gave him round 3.
Let me pull the scorecards up. They gave him round 3.
Can you?
Let's see the logic. Let's see the logic.
Red is Melsik.
Red is Melsik.
What was that? 23-14.
23-19 strikes. So I'm actually kind of confused now, because
because when they said 29-28, I knew Melsik won, but I was like, which round did he lose?
Was there any? I don't remember if there was any.
No, there was no takedowns. There was nothing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, regardless, the scoring I don't necessarily agree with, but the outcome was correct.
Well, there was some control here. I don't know if.
Oh. But they did mention on the broadcast. You just mentioned it as well. That movement, and you can see that a lot of the Taekwondo guys utilize that movement too, right? Where you're really utilizing the circumference, or not the circumference, but whatever the word of that would be for an octagon. Utilizing that perimeter movement of the octagon.
The periphery.
Which as a strategy makes sense if you have some kind of supplement to it. Just on its own isn't really going to cut it. You almost got outstruck by double, 75-46 in favor of Melsik. And never really posed too much of a threat to Melsik. The one thing that DC mentioned that I agreed with was Melsik was showing surprising amount of patience that you don't always see from him. This is a guy that has over, I think what the broadcast mentioned, over 200 amateur kickboxing fights. Yeah, that's amateur level, but obviously a guy that has plenty of fights under his belt, which a lot of these guys do. But and then he's a pretty well-known, he's a respected kickboxer. That's Melsik's background too. And he's got power. He's got some serious power for a featherweight. Like, the fact that guy makes 145 is astonishing to me too. He's a pretty big dude for 145. And for the most part, Souza was able to not deal with too much of that power, and that's partly because of that movement. He definitely did get hit a few times, but nothing really to the point of threat level of, this guy might be done so. But to Melsik's credit, you know, he didn't get frustrated by that. At least I didn't get an impression that he was getting
No, he
frustrated.
didn't.
That he wasn't getting those, like, for example, again, like that Colin Anglin fight knocked him out with that beautiful head kick. Even during his Contender Series debut against Dennis Bazooka, I think was his name, he absolutely was blowing him out of the water in that first round of the fight. And he completely blew his gas tank, and he had nothing the second and third round. So it was actually refreshing to see that he was pretty measured in that performance against Souza. What Edmond was like almost nonstop saying during the fight, because we understand what he's saying in Armenian. He just kept saying, break his leg.
I did want to comment on that because I mentioned it earlier in another one of our episodes. I don't know why he gave up on that, you know, because Souza's leg was starting to look really bad. It started to kind of look like what Blachowicz had done to Reyes' side. That leg was swelling up. It was starting to look really nasty.
And it was almost immediate.
Oh,
it
yeah.
Was almost immediate. It was after that two, he had a fat bruise.
So why give up on that? I mean, and so let's go back to the merry-go-round thing, right? Souza's going around in a merry-go-round. Souza should be, when he's doing this, he should be, since Melsik's not cutting him off, he's just following, throw a leg kick while he's following you around. You'll catch him. Melsik, what he should have been doing is cutting him off, throwing a leg kick to snap that leg in half, because a couple more would have snapped Souza's leg. It did not look stable. It did not look healthy. And so it's just interesting to me why they give up on that. You know, clearly that strategy was successful. You could have pursued it, and I think you could have ended the fight earlier. And maybe that was the reason why Souza started circling around too. Maybe he realized, holy crap, if I take any more hits to this knee, I'm done. So it could have been that too, where that was the way out of having serious like knee surgery.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at Melsik's numbers here, this is as evenly distributed as you could have it. 26 shots to the head, 25 to the body, 24 to the legs. It's right down the middle, 33, 33, 33% across the board. So very well distributed. That's where you see that kickboxing background stepping in. You know, it's funny. I was watching those Fight Night Picks guys, and when they were discussing this fight, they were saying the over/under on the takedowns for this probably has to be set at like 0. He's like, no one's going to try a takedown. And then Souza goes, not very like good ones, but he attempts 4 of them. And you know, Melsik, that's not his background. We mentioned kickboxing, so his background isn't the ground game. So the fact that, you know, he didn't go down is good, but also it wasn't like a threatening takedown attempt.
No, they weren't very clean.
That's going to be the biggest thing for Melsik. There's 2 big things with Melsik, and it's almost the same 2 things with Edmond that are the issue for him: gas tank and the ground. Because once Melsik fights someone that is proficient enough on the ground game, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with him, because he's shown that his gas tank isn't necessarily the best, or at least if that's unfair to say, he has shown that he maybe doesn't utilize it effectively. Granted,
yes, that's what it is.
This fight he did use it effectively.
Yes,
he looked pretty good. By the end of that third round, he looked good. You know, he wasn't throwing that full power, because again, we mentioned he's got a lot of power. He wasn't bombing away each strike. DC said, he's like, I'm surprised that we're seeing this level of patience, because Melsik told me I'm a crazy guy. You know, I'm a crazy guy inside and outside the octagon, DC, blah, blah, blah. And good for him. You know, good that he showed that measured thing. I think he's going to need to continue to show that to be successful in the featherweight division, because once it does come again to fighting someone that's going to take you to the ground, he's going to have to, if he is unsuccessful in defending getting taken to the ground, he's going to have to use that energy then to try and get out, or at least to be able to defend himself. And since we haven't seen him tested on that front yet, I don't know how he's going to look. I don't know if he's going to do it well, because again, I don't really put too much stock in him stuffing 4 takedown attempts for Souza. A guy was a Taekwondo background guy. I don't put too much into it, so I mean, it's good. You didn't get taken down, so that is good. But was that a legitimate threat? No. So I don't know where I put Melsik in terms of like a contender status in a featherweight division yet, or even like in terms of ranking status. I don't know where to gauge him yet, just given we haven't seen his possible weakest element tested yet. If you pull up, you're pulling up the featherweights here now. Let's go to the bottom portion because he's, of course, nowhere near that. So Alex Caceres, who we saw win last week with a nice come from behind win. Shane Burgos, who won later that evening.
Yeah, there's my boy right here.
Evelev, who's an absolute, and we'll get to that guy in a sec. Movsar Evelev, who's also an animal on the ground. Sodiq Yusuf, if it's the guy I'm remembering, maybe Melsik could take him. And then, Thug Nasty right there. Bryce Mitchell. That guy would probably be a big problem for Melsik, and by no means am I insinuating that's nearly what's happening next, but
dude,
someone like that,
he's a threat for the entire division, man.
Yeah.
No, to your point though, I mean, I think they should slow play it. Melsik needs to take it slow, keep fighting guys that maybe aren't ranked yet, definitely aren't ranked yet. You need to build that experience up. You need to slow play it. And this is good for him in the sense that I think he did demonstrate a lot of fight IQ. It was very intelligent to slow it down in the second and then slow it down even further in the third. And I think that's one of look, he has the same corner as Edmund. Mm-hmm. So they couldn't be completely opposites. Well, they are complete opposites in terms of, I think, the way they fight. Melsik fights way more intelligent, in my opinion. And like you said, he wasn't throwing the big bombs that we had seen before, and I think that's what helped him conserve a lot of fuel for the second and the third. So if he keeps fighting on like that, go keep doing some more cardio. Definitely go get maybe like a training camp on, how to stuff some takedowns from a proper takedown expert. I think he can be a very, very, very serious threat, man. Yeah. But as far as rankings, he's not ready. He's definitely not ready.
Yeah. For sure. But Izzy has shown that blueprint. I forgot who I was listening to recently that said it. I think maybe it was Brett Okamoto. I forgot who said it, but it's a very simple statement. If you're not a ground guy in terms of, once you're down there, you can't do much. It doesn't really matter if you don't get taken to the ground.
Precisely.
If you're able to stuff it, who cares that you can't fight on the ground if they're not going to be able to get you there. That's why Izzy has been as successful as he has been. That Yan fight is an anomaly because he's fighting a guy that's so much bigger than him physically.
Well, and he's more well-rounded. I mean,
around that 185.
Well, and he's more well-rounded. Yan has the ground game as well. So
but Izzy has fought guys like Marvin Vettori, very good grappler.
Couldn't get him there.
Yeah, he did get taken down, but he didn't take the damage.
Yeah,
but he defended it for the most part fairly well. Robert Whittaker can take you down too. I don't remember if Robert really tried too much of that against Izzy, but that's always, every time Izzy fights anyone that has some kind of ground game, right? They discuss that. Oh, is that going to be? But he has I think close to a 90% takedown defense. So that's the thing, if most of that time you're not getting taken down, you don't have to worry about it. So he went 4 for 4 on takedown defense. Melsik did. That's what you got to do. Same with Dan Hooker when he was fighting Islam. Entering that fight, Dan, I think, had the best or one of the best takedown defenses, again, amongst lightweights. Ended up not mattering because he was fighting the guy that had the best takedown percentage in Makhachev. But that's always going to be the battle in guys like Melsik, like Izzy, and I'm not trying to say talent level, but in terms of the background of primarily stand-up guys that aren't known. Like what Izzy's like, a purple belt, a blue belt? I don't even know if Melsik has any belt in BJJ. But those guys that clearly that's not their thing. It's a matter of, all right, it's not your thing. Just make sure you don't get taken down.
Yeah.
So we'll see with Melsik. Again, he's also fairly young. I think he's actually older than Edmund. What is he, 29, I think?
29.
29, yeah. So that might play part of it too, honestly. Again, when we're talking about the measured approach, he probably has more overall fights than Edmund, not necessarily professionally in MMA, but we mentioned, over 200 amateur fights. I don't know what Edmund's was or is. But given that he has so much fight experience, that may have played a part of it too. Plus, in addition to fight experience, he also has, he's 29. He's got 4, 5, 6 years on Edmund too. So that might play a part of it as well. Again, otherwise, everything else is similar in that they have the same corner, they have the same gym, and both of their weaknesses are almost the same: gas tank and ground game. So you wonder, where is the difference? But also quality of opponent is the other thing.
Yes, that's true too.
Their division is obviously different, but Edmund so far has faced much more difficult opponents, but they're also different stages of their career. So there's
Edmund was ranked, so it makes sense that he would be fighting those guys, whereas Melsik is not ranked. And I guess I find that kind of interesting too, in that, why Dana would just immediately give this guy a ranking, basically, toss him into the
it wasn't immediate.
It was one fight and then boom, he's ranked after that.
The biggest thing that got Edmund to that was that he defeated Brad Tavares, who has a lot of respect in the UFC. So knocking him out the way that he knocked him out was the biggest propeller for him. Otherwise, up until that point, he had won, but there wasn't a name like that. Brad Tavares at that time was the name that put him there, because he's still, if I'm not mistaken, Tavares is still ranked amongst middleweights. He had a good performance his last fight, so that's why. So it wasn't like completely out of nowhere, because he beat a ranked guy, so that put him. I don't remember if he was ranked when he fought Brad, but I know Brad was definitely ranked at the time. So that's what really propelled him. It's just after that, I think to the part of what you said, I agree with, is at least after that, they put him against much higher level of competition, I think, that he was prepared for. The Brunson one, you could argue, because at the time it was 8 versus 9. I think Edmund was 8, Brunson was 9. The odds on that was absolutely nuts. Had I not been, if I was not Armenian and rooting for him, I would have thrown everything onto the Brunson line, because that was such an overvalued pick that Edmund was. But then after that, I mean, they've thrown him to the wolves, and sometimes some people succeed in those situations, and sometimes they don't. And Edmund so far has shown that he's not ready for those situations, whereas Melsik hasn't been in that situation yet for us to know definitively. But at least so far at this junction of his career, he's showing some stuff. But that's that fight. So good win for Melsik. I don't really care to see Bruno again, to be frank. I don't know if we will or won't. But yeah, any final notes on this performance for you?
No, we hit it all. Like you said, good on him, man. And hopefully everything that we discussed in terms of making sure that you can't get taken down, that gets drilled into his head, and he takes steps to actually, go to a gym that could give him a full camp or two on how to stuff that.
Yep. So we'll see what the trajectory is. Two guys kind of in different directions at the same gym. So let's see what pans out for both Melsik and for Edmund. But yeah, that's this fight.